quickly, what exactly is the Targa? Where does it sit within Porsche's ever-expanding 911 lineup? Well, you can kind of think of it as the complete opposite of a GT3, which for this channel is a little bit obscure. I know we sort of lean towards the more sort of hardcore driver-focused cars. Not saying that this isn't a driver-focused car. However, the ethos of this car is a lot more to do with the lifestyle, the chill, the roof down, the wind in your hair, and of course that underpinning of Porsche dynamics. But first of all, to the heart of the car, which is of course the engine. 6-cylinder, 3-litre, twin turbocharged flat 6 engine. In this model, which is the 4S, is developing 444 brake horsepower. Interestingly, both variations of the Targa are only available in 4-wheel drive, hence this being a 4S, which I find kind of curious, considering that this car inherently is designed for fairer weather driving. Obviously, the main feature of this car is the fact that you can remove this central part of the roof here, which we shall get round to shortly. So you can currently only get it as a 4-wheel drive variant in both the 4 and 4S. Having said that, what is cool is that while I'm currently in the 8-speed PDK automatic, you can also spec your Targa as a manual. Now, oddly, as fantastically refined as this gearbox is, there's something about the Targa that I think would lend itself quite well to a manual gearbox, especially considering Porsche's manuals are as impressive as the 8-speed twin clutch in this. Anyway, maybe we'll get our hands on one of those one day, but before then, what's this thing like to drive? Well, first of all, there is actually an interesting setup going on this particular car. Now, this is running the standard stock suspension that comes with the 4 and 4S. The optional sports suspension, as the name would suggest, makes the ride quality slightly stiffer, but aesthetically drops the ride height by 10 mils. But inherently, there is a mild ride quality compromise. But in this car, the suspension is standard. Where it gets interesting is while the suspension itself is standard, it has been spec'd with Porsche PDCC. You'll find as we go on through the Porsche journey that there are many acronyms to abbreviate Porsche's many electronic functions. But PDCC stands for Porsche Dynamic Chassis Control. Now, why it's interesting is because spec'd with the standard suspension, which is just a bit softer, and PDCC, what you're getting is a comfier day-to-day ride quality, but with that sort of amazing physics-bending Porsche Dynamic Chassis Control, which reduces the amount of roll you would otherwise get when running the car on standard suspension. What I'm trying to say is, you're getting a soft compliant ride without the normal chassis roll that you would typically encounter with stock suspension. Now, I find myself conveniently on one of our typically characterful British B-roads, and by characterful, I mean terribly serviced. And I think it's a really interesting combo of stock suspension and fancy chassis control. Gives you arguably the perfect balance for this car. Now, it's not something that I would have anticipated speccing myself. If I was ordering one of these cars, despite the fact that it does touch the opposite end of the driving spectrum of something like a GT3, it's still a Porsche, and you still want to exploit a beautiful driving road when you find yourself on it. However, this car is a bit heavier, and the idea of it isn't always to drive it quickly. It's to enjoy it, swan around in it, relax, take your time, enjoy the beautiful interior. The driving position is still iconic Porsche. As soon as you get in it, you sink low, and the whole thing wraps around you as a driving car should. And yet, there is this juxtaposition of this car weighing 40 kilograms heavier than even the cabriolet. And that is in part to the fact that it is now adorning this fantastic glass architecture that hangs over the back there, which contributes more weight, but it does look fantastic. And as the roof retracts, it is art in motion. It's a beautiful thing to witness. The Targa glass rolling back, it looks fantastic. Now, fun fact, despite the fact that the majority of the roof of this car has been sawn off, the torsional rigidity of this car is actually better than that in the 991 generation, wait for it, coupe. You thought I was about to say 991 generation Targa. Hey, better than the 991 Coupe. I mean, if there was a testament to the engineering of Porsche, I think as subtle as that piece of trivia is, I think it's a fantastic example of just how well engineered these cars are. Now let's engage the main function of this car and enjoy it a little bit more. Now, unlike the soft top cabs, you do actually have to bring this car to a stop in order to activate the canopy. So let's go about that right now. Look at it. Honestly, that glass it's absolutely glorious. Never get tired of that. Now, what I particularly like about the Targa, and this is probably the first time that I've vocalized this with regards to Porsches in general, but 911 cabs, I've never been a fan of the aesthetic of them. Once you're in them, great driving experience, but they lose that beautiful shape which is so iconic to the 911. I find all of a sudden it just looks a bit frumpy. But with this, not only have you maintained that iconic line, but the line is in glass, so it's got this transparency to it which still maintains shape and sculpture, all the while you're still getting that open top driving experience. This is the one. So how are we for wind noise? That is obviously a real thing which we should discuss. I don't know how the camera's going about picking it up, but for me it's not too shabby. Ready, four-wheel traction. That's where this four-wheel drive is fantastic. That was first gear, out of a junction, flat on the floor, and you're up to 60 in the 4S in 3.6 seconds. So no slouch, and it will ultimately go on to 188 miles an hour. Not that I necessarily recommend that with the roof down, but still. What I have found in a lot of convertible cars, or open-roofed cars, is that it's all well and good looking at the infotainment screen while the roof is up. When you take the roof down and the sun begins to shine down inside the cockpit, all of a sudden the sunshine takes over your screen and you can't see what's going on. But in this, it's crisp as when the roof is up. It's sort of shrouded in its own little infotainment cave here. It just casts a nice enough shadow over it, so no matter the angle you're at, or certainly on a day like today, which we do have some blue skies and the sun is out, I can read that screen, honestly, with my glasses on, as clear as it is with the roof up. Little details like that make a big difference when you're living with a car. And so, while this car sits literally at the opposite end of the spectrum from a GT3, that might actually just be its greatest strength, because it's offering something completely different. You know, in the world of sports cars right now, it's all more, isn't it? More horsepower, more performance, more downforce, and that's cool, and it has its place, and it does, you know, that's what pulls at my heartstrings. But sometimes, on a day like today, there's a time and place for something like this. Less speed, less performance, more chill. And the Targa, underpinned by that Porsche DNA, might just be that sweet spot. Sounds good, looks good, but not too fast. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I shall see you next time. Ciao.